Good morning. A very good piece in the Australian the other day, written by Troy Bramston. He talked to John Howard and Peter Costello about where the Liberal Party and where the coalition goes from now. Because it just strikes me that all this talk about who the new Liberal leader will be and what's the future of the coalition entirely misses the point. Because it doesn't matter much. Neither of those people being talked about as the leader, Susan Lee or Angus Taylor, will be Prime Minister. And whether the National Party and the Liberal Party are in coalition at the moment matters not, because they have no chance of forming government, not until they find a good leader with policies and a united front. John Howard made a good point in this article with Troy when he said, Mr. Howard, Prime Minister from 1996 to 2007, said the next election will determine whether the Liberal Party's dramatic loss of seats in metropolitan Australia at the past two elections is cyclical or existential, marked by long-term decay. Well, I'd argue it'd be long-term decay because they have very little chance of getting those inner city seats back. I'll talk more about that tomorrow. But I think the other mistake they make is to think there's something current about this mess they're in. I can think back to politics when I was a teenager in 1968, after the death of Harold Holt, and the fighting began. Who would take over? Well, it was John Gorton, a great character. And he and William McMahon were at each other, and eventually John Gorton virtually voted himself out. William McMahon took over. Gough Whitlam came in for Labor, and so began years of misery for the Liberal Party. And then Malcolm Fraser came in 1975, and he governed until 1983, John Howard as his treasurer. And then the fighting began between John Howard and Andrew Peacock, different branches of the Liberal Party, different philosophical sides, when Bob Hawke and Paul Keating governed until 1996, when after all kinds of infighting with Alexander Downer leader, John Hewson as leader, in comes John Howard again, and 11 years until 2007. And then the mess began. And I think it's ironic, and sadly ironic, that a lot of the mess that has followed, Turnbull, first Brendan Nelson, then the Turnbull-Abbott stuff, and on it goes. It's been a mess ever since, with both sides of the Liberal Party fighting each other with no real sense of what they're all about. I think it dates back to 2007 or earlier, when John Howard refused to stand aside for Peter Costello. John Howard always said that the leadership of the party was the gift of the party, and therefore it was up to the party members. But I think great leadership goes beyond that. And I always respected and liked John Howard very much. He's a fine man, and he was a very good Prime Minister. His fundamental mistake, and I think he recognises it now, was that he stayed too long. He should have resigned in 2005 or 2006 and given Peter Costello a chance to show us whether he could have been a good Prime Minister. Defenders of Howard say if Costello wanted the job, he should have challenged. He didn't want to challenge. He didn't have the numbers, unlike Paul Keating when he finally got rid of Bob Hawke. So, wishing not to tear the party apart, Peter Costello instead resigned at the election of 2007, when John Howard lost his seat. Kevin Rudd came in, and it's been downhill ever since. It was Ernest Hemingway who, when asked about how you go bankrupt, said it happens bit by bit and then all at once. At the moment, the Liberal Party is bankrupt of talent, bankrupt of ideas, and seemingly bankrupt of the future. Have a great day.